And this is People in Politics. You can tweet at AM Live at Trevor Ombija. You can even call in. The numbers are running just underneath your screen and join the conversation as we talk about all the issues around the election that's coming up on the 26th, if there's going to be an election. And let me introduce my guest real quick. From the first who showed up, Dr. Miguna Miguna, a lawyer and also a former candidate for the Nairobi governor's race. Honorable Otiende Amollo, Rarieda Member of Parliament and Ombudsman Emeritus, and Honorable Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Senator, is joining us. Also, we're still waiting for Kimani Ichung'wah, Kikuyu Member of Parliament. As soon as it comes, he'll just join us and jump right into the conversation. Dr. Miguna, let me start with you. So what happens if Raila pulls out?
I think that is the wrong question, and I'm horrified that the media has not prioritized what is important. Number one, what is important is that the media needed to express and condemn, express its horror and condemn the barbaric attack on demonstrators yesterday, and also the unnecessary, brutal attack on journalists in Kisumu. The media has glossed over that.
Those were among our top
No,
stories.
I'm going to say this, please. 4 innocent civilians were run over like insects in the middle of the city. It was recorded live on TV, and it is being reported as if those lives don't matter.
In all fairness, that was our story one.
Can I finish?
That was our first story, Miguna.
Mr. Ombija, let me finish. I have not seen the horror expressed by the media, and please, I'm going to express my opinion.
Okay.
So just be patient. Number one, all your headings, starting with the nation, is over other things. In any other country, the media would have been united in expressing horror and condemning the brutal attack on innocent civilians in broad daylight by armed goons that got protected by the police. A man shot in the air, shot an innocent civilian, ran into the police. He was not arrested. The vehicle has been seen. It was broadcast live. The owner is known as John Muriuki. He has not been arrested. The media has not condemned it. The media has been reporting this thing. Opinion is divided over what happened yesterday. There is no divided opinion. The facts speak for themselves. We saw what happened. But the media is not condemning this. That's number one. Number two, the Kenya National Commission for Human Rights released a comprehensive report titled My Raj at Dusk and documented barbaric butchering of Luos, predominantly Luos. The media glosses over it, says a particular community. Luos are not a particular community. It has a name. We know who they are. They have been targeted by the police, and we must condemn it without equivocation. So that's just number one. I want this to be very clear. We are not going to let the media off the hook. The media, when reporting on barbaric attacks in Kisumu, says demonstration later turned ugly. Demonstration did not turn ugly. The police turned its lethal weapons on innocent civilians, including the media. So let us level with the media in Kenya. We are not going to let the media off the hook. The media got us here by glossing over electoral fraud that happened on August the 8th. Coming to your question, the issue is not whether or not Raila pulls out of the race. There will be no election on October 26th.
Why do you say
there
that?
will be no valid election. Election must be held pursuant to the Constitution. And Article 138(2) is very clear that a presidential election must happen in all constituencies in Kenya. We know as a fact, and the Constitution says that sovereignty vests in the people, and it can be exercised directly by the people, or it can be expressed indirectly through the people's representative, either at the national government, the county government. The county government of Siaya has already formally notified the IEBC that they will not be participating in the election. As a result, there will be no valid election. You cannot choreograph this. You cannot cover this. You cannot represent this in a hodgepodge in order to validate an invalid election. We are either going to have a credible election, which is conducted pursuant to the Constitution and all applicable laws, or we are not going to have an election at all. Right now, the Electoral Commission does not know what it is doing. The Electoral Commission is in bed with Jubilee. They have gone back to the Supreme Court with a non-question, with a non-issue. Yesterday, Justice Maraga and Deputy Justice Mwilu asked a very simple question. What is it that Mr. Chebukati and the IEBC need clarified? When the Electoral Act is very clear that Form 34A is declared at the polling station, it is final, it is transmitted simultaneously to the constituency tallying center and transmitted to the national tallying center. At the constituency tallying center, Form 34B is prepared and is transmitted to the national tallying center. These results are final, can't be changed, can't be altered, you can't move a comma, you can't withdraw or add. So what you are supposed to verify is, does Form 34B as transmitted from the constituency tallying center correspond to Form 34A? It is so elementary. The only reason why the IEBC is back at the Supreme Court is because of these choreographed amendments at Parliament, which is intended to make an altered form be supersede the one that is transmitted. Okay. So what I'm saying, the media needs to get its act together and defend the Constitution. Okay.
Let me bring in Honorable Otiende Amollo on this. And I don't want to get into the editorial merits of the media, but now that Dr. Miguna brought it up, let's thresh it out a bit. First of all, the reason we say that there are divided opinions and the opinion is varied on the accident is because the police have a different account. They have not especially spoken directly. But the claim down there is that the person was trying to steal from them and then the crowd was turning rowdy, so they had to save themselves by running away. That's number one. The issue about the people who've been killed from an ethnic community, one particular ethnic community, we mentioned that, but as the media, remember in 2007, we were accused of inciting violence.
Who accused
so at what point...
Who accused you?
Dr. Miguna, you would know we were accused of doing this.
Who accused you? The people who perpetrated the murders accused you. Why are you coddling up to the people who perpetrate murders?
At the same time, we are supposed to be impartial.
No. Anyway, there's no impartiality.
We're having Otiende Amollo's time. You're taking into his time. Let him respond to this first.
Thank you.
Yeah, before we get into the issue.
First of all, I think that the media has a very important role to play. And the role of the media must be factual. When you present facts as they are, no one can accuse you of incitement. Indeed, even the fact of incitement and the offense of incitement to violence and all is when you are not basing whatever you're saying on fact, but you're trying to cause a scenario where the result of what you say would be violence. There can be no incitement in stating, which is the truth, that the Luos in this country have unfortunately suffered the wrath of the police, particularly in every election and in between. Now, that is not incitement. If then you claimed that perhaps the number was higher, perhaps there was a different motive other than politics, it might be incitement. But I believe that facts must be reported for what they are. The second issue is the unfortunate incident of the people who are run over by that person. I agree with Miguna, and I don't really need to add much to it. I think the unfortunate, the more unfortunate thing is the purported explanation by the police. When there are demonstrations, You do not drive your car into a demonstration. Everyone knows that. So you cannot claim that you drove your car into a demonstration and then you are being robbed. Secondly, if you run into a demonstration or a rowdy mob, the first thing you do is lock your doors. We did not see any evidence or anybody trying to break into the windows of that car. Thirdly, no ordinary Kenyan would be driving into a demonstration and then people come out, as we saw, with guns and walkie-talkies. There is no such thing. I think what is unfortunate is this. There's a very clear pattern that is emerging, that there are a certain group of Kenyans who, even on suspicion of committing an offense, they are arrested, brought to court, then the prosecutors say, keep them, we are going to investigate. Then there's the other group of Kenyans who will commit an offense, and when asked, as we saw from the IG or the DPP, they will say, we are investigating, we do not know what the facts are. And usually that is the end of the story. I dare you to look for the last 5 years into any of the statements where the Inspector General or the Director of Public Prosecution or the senior police officer were asked and they said we are investigating. You will realize those investigations are still pending. So I think that it is very important that as long as we are trying to unify this country, as long as we are trying to say we are one Kenyan nation, one sovereign state, we must use the same standards for all the Kenyan ethnicities, for all the groupings. The police must protect the different political formations and not allow some to be butchered and attacked, while on the other hand, wherever there are demonstrations, then they are protected by the police. That brings a sense of disgruntlement, of disentitlement, that is very dangerous for us as a nation.
Okay.
Yes.
And on the Raila issue, what happens if he pulls out? Are you reading it the same as...
I think that the headlines are quite unfortunate because they have taken the words of President Uhuru Kenyatta. They have not taken the words of Raila Odinga. The position that Prime Minister Raila Odinga has always maintained is not that he's going to quit the race. The position NASA has taken is never that Raila will quit, is that there will be no election. So to have a headline that says, will Raila quit, is to miss the point. And I think Miguna spoke to that. But I think what is more fundamental for me, when I see these debates, and I look at the media, and I look at the debates, there's a very, very fundamental point that is being left out. Everyone is talking as if the fact of Raila running, the fact of having a credible election is a private affair of Raila Amollo Odinga. No one, and I'm a bit horrified at this, no one, and even the media, is not going back to the Supreme Court judgment and looking at it and asking, has the IEBC put in place the mechanism that it will ensure that the orders of the court are complied with, that there must be elections in strict compliance with the Constitution and the electoral laws. All the so-called NASA's irreducible minimum are actually derived from the Supreme Court. But the media and all the commentators make them look like they are Raila's, a private wish list by Raila. Secondly, the IEBC is compounding the bad situation. Instead of seeking to apply the decision of the court, it is seeking to support the National Assembly to subvert the decision of the court. And it is seeking to support the National Assembly to implement the dissenting opinion of one judge. And in that respect, it has gone ahead to draft the very unfortunate set of laws which are being legitimized. And if you want to see and know how complacent IEBC is, you will realize that in yesterday's newspapers, that team, that illegal team, comprising of senators and members of the National Assembly, were happy to report that they are doing their report in Windsor and that they were actually sitting with one commissioner who, because they are clearly partisan, they did not wish to name, that they've thrashed out the areas that, that were sticky. I think it's really unfortunate, and it's fortunate that Senator Wamatangi is here, that a committee of Parliament, a joint committee, can send away the chair of an independent commission and ask the chair that we will not hear you unless you come with your commissioners. Clearly illegal, clearly shows how partisan they are, clearly trying to fit everyone. I think that they are quite fortunate that perhaps Mr. Chebukati is a gentleman. There is no way in hell I would have appeared before that team again. I mean, you were appointed the chair. You have specific constitutional duties and responsibilities, and you're being told that unless you carry along all the others, I mean, I think it's just a charade. I think what we are seeing is this. We are in a situation where the Jubilee team has determined that it will go for elections, it will thwart any meaningful implementation of the Supreme Court decision, they will use whatever numbers they have to sabotage any thoughts of a decent, credible, and fair elections, and they want to shove it down the throttle that take it or leave. It must be realized that every Kenyan at the end of the day, under Article 38, it would be pointless to participate in elections that have a clear, determined outcome. In elections where the main referee is not interested in leveling the playing field. In an election where all the other parties that should be ensuring that we have credible elections, including Parliament, are busy trying to sabotage it. There would be no point in doing that.
All right. Let me bring in Honorable Kimani Wamatangi on this one, Kiambu Senate, and there's a lot to respond to. I don't purport to speak for the media, but I'll also let you take your swipe at the media and also respond to what Otiende Amollo has said.
Well, first, good morning.
Good morning.
I know it is good to take a breath of fresh air after the vitriol powered by Daktari, both Daktaris here. Looks like today they are burning on all four cylinders. Well, but I think first, let's acknowledge that we have a country to take care of. We have people in this country, citizens of this country, whose priorities, whose right to life is absolutely way above the interest of any person or any group or any party. And that must be the guiding principle that we use as we either think, respond, or even strategize as people, especially as leaders, as political leaders. The reason I say that is because, you know, sometimes we place an intention or a goal, something we want to achieve in front of us. And especially politicians do that. And once they have engaged in the pursuit of that goal, they will follow it to what you would call absolute absurdity, even to the extent that they lose focus of everything. I mean, the law means nothing, right to life means nothing, limits of common decency mean nothing. And so you find that sometimes when you listen to so much and it is out of focus. And I'll say two things. One, I've seen from yesterday, I was also watching and following what was in almost all the news channels from various media houses. I read the papers, I've seen the papers today. And I don't want to say that the media is an angel, because they've never been. But in this respect, and many times they have tried to do probably as best as they could humanly possibly do. Because, you know, you report, of course, and the reports are there. It is upon the person reading the news or listening to determine, one, does it agree with his own point of view? It does not have to agree with anyone's point of view. Two, does it cut as deep as you want it to cut? Depends on how emotionally charged you're feeling or how you want to apply your mind. But the issue is there. The purpose and the work of the media, actually, we had this debate here one time on this forum. The work of the media, and I would say this, the best way is for you to report things as they are and avoid taking sides. Avoid swinging to this side or this side, and don't even either color things or try even to portray a perspective so that you can fit a certain thought line. And I think, as far as I'm concerned, in these issues, you've done your best. Sometimes, in my opinion, sometimes I even think you do a little too little. You should do a bit more. But that's okay. Secondly, we have these other issues that have been prosecuted here by our friends, and I want to start with the headline. What you asked, the question you asked, will Raila pull out? Or if he pulls out, what happens? And it is nobody's secret. You know, I mean, it's out all there. He has said it himself many times without completing the sentence that indeed one of his options, considerations, is pulling out. And you see, there is a provision within the judgment of the Supreme Court in 2013 that alluded to something like that, if one of the presidential candidates in a race, in a fresh election, pulls out, then the elections would be postponed. And that is certainly, you know, whether my colleagues here want to admit it or not, that is certainly one of the considerations that they've been having. Two is what they've also talked about in their options of falling back to Article 138(2) of the Constitution, so that they would have their way of not having the election held. And I want to lay this very, very clearly, first, for Kenyans to understand this morning, that this quest, this venture, this crusade to ensure that the elections have not been held did not start after the Supreme Court ruling. This has been the strategy NASA pursued all the way even to the last general election. Everybody knows, it's too short in history and in our memories, that now this is the second group or the second IEBC in less than 7 months or 8 months that NASA is demonstrating and agitating to pull out of office. The second, and you have heard in their demos and what they were saying, including the leaders, that IEBC must go for them to go to the elections. That is exactly what they said of Hassan, Isaac Hassan, a few months ago. And indeed he went. After he went, because their strategy did not fall into what they wanted to paralyze the elections. They wanted to have a scenario where you can't have the elections. Okay. And the pursuit and the end goal is certainly you do not have a legitimate government and you can be able to negotiate a caretaker system of sorts, which is not tenable. Now let me say this very quickly as I wind up. Yeah. You see, the provisions of Article 138(2) that elections must be held in every constituency does not mean and does not bind or is not translatable either into a compelling article that would compel you to go and vote or to go and participate individually or as a team or as a group for you to legitimize the election. What requires to happen, I remember you must have heard during the Supreme Court proceedings, there were polling stations where it was legitimately announced there was even one voter or two voters. And that did not invalidate any election anywhere. So if a polling station in any, and I heard Miguna saying that there is a county government that has given notice that they will not participate in the elections. I wonder where did they get that from? That county governments do not arrange elections in conjunction with IEBC. IEBC and county governments are not either recognized. You know, IEBC organizes elections on behalf of Kenyans, individually. And so, if either a governor somewhere or a political leader feels that he does not want to participate in an election, he can do that with his friends or those he can influence. And you reckon it would have an impact? But as long as, you see, my friend, let me tell you, if you decided that what you want to do is to place the country in limbo because you don't want to participate in an election, there is nowhere within this law that says that Miguna Miguna or Kiambu or Wamatangi must participate in an election for that election to be legitimate. So, as long as polling stations are open, as long as everything is provided for, if an individual chooses not to go for the election or for an election, that does not illegitimize the election. And what I would urge IEBC is to focus on the job as they have been tasked and asked by the Supreme Court and by the Constitution. Organize elections ensure they're free, they're fair, every material is there, open polling stations in time. Those who will come to vote will come to vote. If we have 1 million votes in a county, well and good, they'll be counted. If we have one, but it has been free, fair, peaceful, well and good, that vote will be counted. This election is about a winner by majority, and we know the rules of winning.
Okay.
Now, on these demonstrations, let me just put my word lastly on the demonstrations, because a lot has been said. And you see, once we start balkanizing the country and referring to communities and trying to create a narrative that there is intended target of individuals and especially a community, I think that is very dangerous, let me tell you. We can't start to speak like that as responsible leaders. We cannot. You may score a few political points by saying that either in your village, but ultimately as a national leader, you lose it all. Okay. I mean, you cannot have been elevated to that position to come and speak that kind of language. I know that, yes, and I want to be the first to apologize and to say, for anyone who may have gotten hurt, what these leaders would be doing, what they would be doing to help this country and to help even their own supporters, NASA supporters, is to say, yes, we are elected leaders like Honorable Amollo. We want to go to the negotiating table. That negotiating table is available for them in plenary in Parliament. We want to go and participate there, take our debate there, challenge laws there if there are laws, including what they are saying, this law-making process, input their views, challenge and amend what they don't like, have the law passed the way law should be passed, and then once that has happened, they can protect their people. And they would be telling their people, okay, fine, as far as the Constitution is concerned, it is true that the Constitution allows peaceful demonstrations and picketing. But they should also, in the same breath, tell their supporters that once you hit the road to demonstrate, remember there are other Kenyans who have equal rights like you. And so don't destroy their property, don't stone them, don't rob them, because you've been infringing on their rights. Okay. On this issue of the vehicle that ran off of a few people, it's really regrettable. It's very regrettable. But it is also irresponsible for a leader to try and turn that to look like they're saying something so that it favors their thinking. You know, you've been in demonstrations. Probably you've watched them, maybe. I have. Run into them myself sometimes here when university students are on the road. You're driving and you find yourself abruptly, they're here. And you know, the first human instinct is to flee, is to save yourself. In a mob scenario, you cannot start talking the way you're talking. I mean, things happen, you'll be taking off if you're in a vehicle, you run if you're on foot, you protect yourself. If you're with the children, you protect your children. That is the way people react when you're in a scenario like that one. So what I'm calling out is this, and what I'm saying is wrong, that we should not allow a few leaders to try and invoke emotions into the psyche of the country by trying to show or insinuating that there is an intentional target of people. I don't think we've gotten to that level, and I think they need to apologize to the country for saying, making those irresponsible remarks.
All right, let's see if they'll apologize in the next hour. And Kimani, Ichung'wah, Kikuyu MP is joining us. We're taking a short break here. When we come back, there'll be a lot of response on several issues that have been raised. You can call in anytime. I see a lot of your feedback here. Usha will be reading some of them in the next hour. See you in just a bit. Oh, thank you for staying with the Decision 2017. We are back, and the political barbs are still they're trading it right here in studio. But joining us now is Kimani, Ichung'wah, Kikuyu Member of Parliament. And let me read a few of your feedback just before Usha comes in. Evelyn Kwamboka says, Miguna is speaking the whole truth. Seriously, your headlines could have started with total horror. It was unfortunate to those innocent Kenyans. And we have Mohammed Abdullahi, who says, ask Wamatangi whether Jubilee has set up a defectors fund as alleged. And then there's Joel Bet, who says, Otiende Amollo is very much aware that NASA can't and won't beat Jubilee on this game. That's why they try to find some sort of lame excuses. And last, Faiza Suleiman, as confused as IEBC looks, you can tell it's under the control of Jubilee. Only a fool will not see that. Honorable Kimani, we were speaking about the possibility of Raila Odinga pulling out from the elections and the impact. What do you read into it? What would happen if he pulled out?
Well, Trevor, I'll say one, it is a possibility that we are staring at, and none other than Raila himself and all his friends within the NASA coalition are speaking to it. Therefore, it is a reality probably that we should be living up to now. And the question then is, what would be the consequences of a Raila pullout of the election? For me, from the beginning, as Senator Wamatangi said, I was listening in as I was driving here, is that right till before the August 8th elections, the NASA coalition and Raila Odinga himself were never ready for an election. They never wanted to go into an election. And they tried by all means through the courts and all other means that they could to derail that election from happening. When they were stuck with that reality that elections were going to happen on the 8th of August, then they had to resort to the Supreme Court. And we said, as much as we didn't agree with that decision by the Supreme Court, we respected it and respected to go, agreed to go back into elections in 60 days as was directed by the Supreme Court. That being that, and I did hear my colleagues here say that those elections were to be carried out in strict compliance with the Constitution and the laws of this country. That responsibility to carry out that fresh election in strict compliance with the laws and the Constitution was then left to IEBC, not to any to either of the political formations in Jubilee or NASA, but to IEBC as an independent body. And therefore, I have seen NASA struggling to make Kenyans believe that they are the only ones who are interested in having a free, fair, and credible election. But remember, Trevor, it is Jubilee whose win was stolen or taken away from them by the courts through the presidential petition. Therefore, we are more interested in having a fair, free, and credible election on the 26th. And we would have loved a situation where we humiliate ODM and Raila Odinga and show them that indeed the Kenyan people had actually made their decision to vote back Uhuru Kenyatta and Jubilee by an overwhelming majority, not just in the presidential race, okay, but right from the MCA, governor, senator to members of parliament seats. Okay. And with that in mind, Trevor, then we have, as a coalition, as a party, allowed IEBC to be able to go back to the drawing board and be able to fix the problems, the systemic problems, as our call, to be able to fix those systemic problems. And
that's the same issue that Omar Abdulwalib on Twitter is bringing up. He says Jubilee should be angry with the IEBC for bungling an election they won fairly. Isn't it funny that they defend the same?
Trevor, we were angry with IEBC, we were angry with the court, but we respect all those institutions. We respect the judiciary, we respect IEBC, and we have allowed them that latitude to be able to fix the problems and allow Kenyans to be able to move on with their lives. And that's what we have always maintained, that allow IEBC to do their work. All our institutions, Parliament, the judiciary, IEBC are all alive and active. If IEBC does not conduct the elections in pursuit of the Constitution and the laws that are there, the electoral laws that are there, then the judiciary can check in, Parliament can check in. And in fact, it's unfortunate that I had my colleague Otiende Amollo speak to the sense that to the fact that the committee, the select committee, the ad hoc select committee that was looking into the amendment laws is an illegal committee, and it's a committee of the House that he sits in. I doubt whether the House is also illegal, the House he sits in, because that is a subset of the entire House. And therefore, the fact that they decided to boycott the workings of the House does not in any way make it illegal. It would be illegal if there is anything within our Constitution or our laws or even Parliament standing orders that will invalidate the work of that committee, but nothing invalidates the work of that committee. The thing I want to speak to, Trevor, is the very unfortunate remarks that I did hear my colleagues from the NASA coalition speak to. One, I did hear Otiende Amollo speak to the fact that the police have a responsibility to safeguard the lives and to protect all communities. And I just asked myself, anybody listening to Otiende Amollo, is Otiende Amollo telling us that there is a certain community, or that there are communities that are demonstrating in the streets and the other communities that are not demonstrating? For us, we have taken it that it is Kenyans who want to express their displeasure, and they are allowed within the confines of the Constitution to demonstrate, to picket, but they must also know that their freedoms stop where those of other Kenyans stop. It's unfortunate, as has been said, with what happened yesterday, a car running over some of the demonstrators. But again, for those who are calling these demonstrations, you must also be responsible leaders. In fact, one of the things we may want to do in this coming, in this session of Parliament, as soon as we are done with the things, the elections and all the other things that are going on now, is to enact legislation that would, in fact, designate certain areas in all major cities and towns where people can demonstrate and picket, so that you do not curtail my freedom of movement. You do not curtail my freedom to conduct my business in town because you are demonstrating. Therefore, let us also be responsible. As much as we are calling people to come out and demonstrate, they should do so peaceably. Yeah. I have read accounts and listened to accounts from people out there, people who are saying that indeed, even before the car ran over those people, there's somebody who was shot after he attempted to snatch a phone from the driver or a passenger in the car. Therefore, we must also be responsible leaders and ensure that those who are demonstrating with us, those that we are leading, we have got peace marshals and people who will show these people where to pass. Allow vehicles to move. If you are demonstrating and you are a mass of human beings walking along the highway, you can always move aside and allow vehicles to move on one side, because you are not there to curtail other people's freedoms. And therefore, it is very unfortunate that these people could look at this as a matter of communities. I do not know which communities is that is demonstrating and is not being protected by the police. The unfortunate things is the things that we have seen in Kisumu. People destroying public property, water bowsers that are basically going to be serving them. And you wonder why we do not hear any of these leaders, even my good friend Professor Anyang', the new governor for Kisumu, speak out against these things, because those are the things that we should not allow in demonstrations. People robbing and looting other people's properties, the Tumaini supermarket that was looted in Kisumu, all these things. I have not heard any of the NASA leaders, other than a statement that was issued that ODM as a political party condemns.
You've made your point.
But where is the leadership of that political party?
And Dr. Miguna, there's a lot that has been raised. I want to hear a response. And also, Kimani Wamatangi wants you to apologize for alleging that the police are brutalizing a particular community.
Yes, Trevor. I prefer facts. I prefer facts because we should all just argue using facts. Nobody is entitled to his or her set of facts. So we must restrict ourselves to facts. Fact number one, My Raj at Dusk is a publication by Kenya National Commission for Human Rights, a constitutional commission in Kenya. It released a report yesterday, over 200 pages. It identified 35 out of 37 deaths that were occasioned through extrajudicial killings by the police in 1 week. It stated as a fact, based on their findings, that Luos were targeted, that the overwhelming majority, more than 99% of the deaths were Luos. They named the deaths. So these are not my facts. These are facts as found by Kenya National Commission for Human Rights. Number two, fact. Fact number two, Kenya belongs to all of us. Kenya does not only belong to Jubilee alone. We patriots are not second-class citizens, and therefore we cannot be targeted. And by patriots, I mean Kenyans of goodwill who actually respect the Constitution and uphold it. Fact number three, Siaya is a county in the Republic of Kenya. The county government is recognized as such in the Constitution. And the Siaya County government represents the people of Siaya legitimately, constitutionally, and is allowed as a government to speak on behalf of the people of Siaya. And it has spoken. The problem that we see, fact number three, is that we have a crisis of leadership in this country. We have a crisis of having handed over responsibilities of governance to people who never fought for independence, at independence. Then, in 1966, this power was then given to home guards who did not understand what the struggle was. And then when multi-party came in, those who fought for multi-party did not get leadership. Leadership was given to those who opposed multi-partyism. Then after the enactment of the Constitution in 2010, those who opposed the Constitution are the ones who took power. We must resolve the crisis so that we don't have a situation in Kenya, which is what we have. The most illegitimate, the most unqualified, the most incompetent, and those without integrity are the ones that are holding public office, whether appointive or elective. That then results into the crisis that we are in. We are already in a crisis. Point number 4. It is also a fact that the problem with the media, because we were talking about the media, is because the leadership of the media, it appears, coddles to those who are controlling the state. Look at the op-ed, the editorial by Macharia Gaido, who is a senior editor in The Nation. He writes, Israel are once again planning for defeat in coming election, completely oblivious of the fact that the August 8th election was nullified, was rendered void and invalid, which means there was no defeat, there was no victory. But he talks as if, in fact, Uhuru won the 8th of August election. He did not win. There is no difference between what Macharia Gaido has written and what Mr. Ichung'wah has been speaking of. He says, Mr. Ichung'wah, Jubilee's win was stolen by the Supreme Court. Hear that. Hear that. And he says he respects the court. A court of law, which is in any organized democratic society, is the final word when it comes to civil disputes, has rendered judgment. And a so-called leader comes on national television to say that judgment is a coup. That judgment is theft. Number 2, he says, we want to humiliate Raila Odinga. That's a national leader. He looks at election as a coronation ritual meant to install Uhuru Kenyatta as the emperor of Kenya. He believes that his right, his duty, is to humiliate another one, another Kenyan, who has expressed interest in the same position. Is that the language of a leader? But here he is on national TV. And he will repeat that, and his leader will repeat that. Why? Because he believes title gives him legitimacy. That because he's a honorable member, he's smarter than all of us because he's a honorable member. He believes that he's more intelligent because of a title, not because he can bring qualitative contributions on the table. So the bottom line is this. We are going to stand firm in defense of the Constitution. We are going to stand firm in defense of democratic practice in this country. And we are not going to allow these characters who intend to turn Kenya into a dictatorship, a despotic state, to succeed. Okay. We are saying no, and we are saying no so resoundingly, and you are going to see in the coming weeks what we are going to do. Okay. We are going to tell them Kenya belongs to all of us. We are going to say it fearlessly, and we are going to say it without equivocation.
Okay. Yeah. Ichung'wah, I'll give you a chance to respond to that, but let me bring in Dr. Otiende Amollo on this. Then let's talk about solutions here. NASA is protesting because they want Chiloba out of office. The court, High Court, dismissed an application by 3 voters seeking the same thing, to block Chebukati and Chiloba out of this particular election. So what then is the solution here? Because if you are obeying the Supreme Court, how come you don't want to obey the High Court?
Well, I think it is interesting you start there. And that brings me to, I think there's a story on page 2 that is titled, Court Clears Chebukati Chiloba. Yes. How misleading is that? The court has not cleared Chebukati or Chiloba. I mean, it's unbelievable. If some people go to court to ask the court to stop Chebukati and Chiloba and the rest of the team from conducting elections, and the court dismisses it, that is not clearing them.
The court said that the petition was factually incorrect.
Yes,
when the
that is not I think it is just unbelievable. But for me, it demonstrates that kind of mindset. We have boxed ourselves into a corner, and this is what I was saying earlier.
Yeah.
That is Raila versus Uhuru. It is Jubilee versus NASA. Fair, legitimate, and credible elections is for all Kenyans. There are even Kenyans who, perhaps even as we speak now, do not know which presidential candidate they will vote for among the two gentlemen. There are Kenyans now who might be in either of the groupings, but are more interested in fair, peaceful, and credible elections more than the candidate. And I said this, and I want to repeat it, that the question we should be focusing on is, what caused the Supreme Court to nullify the elections of 8th August? And what is it that we need to do so that we can have fair, credible, and peaceful elections? But we are all not focusing there. The parliament is not focusing there. The media is not focusing there. The international community is not focusing there. Everybody is focusing on Raila versus Uhuru, and then ultimately on, let us have peaceful election, not credibility. Now, the solution is very simple, and I think we've said this before. If the Jubilee team, like NASA, were interested in having fair and credible elections, what they would be asking is, the 11 irreducible minimum points raised by NASA, are they supported in the decision of the Supreme Court? And if they are, has the IEBC complied with it? If there is anything in it that is not supported, the second question would be, is it reasonable? If it is not, then let us put it aside. But instead what they've done, and you know Kimani Ichung'wah has verbalized it, he says, we have allowed IEBC. We as a political formation have allowed, and in that he does not realize that he betrays the truth, that Jubilee is controlling IEBC, because they think that they can allow IEBC to do this. So they've allowed IEBC because IEBC is walking the same path it walked before 8th of August, and they're happy with it. It is unfortunate. It's a charade. I think that we must ask a very fundamental question. My friend Wamatangi said that we have a country to run. A lot of times it is said Kenya is bigger than all of us. And what we must ask is Kenya for all of us or for some of us? Is it for some of us so that if things go the way we want, it does not matter what the rest of the Kenyans think? If we will agree that Kenya is for all of us, then we will be more civil, we will be more strategic, we will be more accommodating. We will not, as my friend Wamatangi says, dismiss as vitriol when you are raising the question of who has suffered the wrath of, in terms of death. You will not dismiss, as my friend Ichung'wah says, and it's unfortunate that he came late, so he did not put my comments in perspective. My comments were in respect of the deaths, not the demos. We said that a significant number of the deaths have affected one community. But in terms of the demos, there have been differential treatment, not of one community, but of the NASA formations, as opposed to the Jubilee formations. Now, so it's understandable he may have missed that. But I mean, let me just focus on this. Has there been differential treatment? I think it is fair to say, and you know, I agree with my friend Wamatangi. There are things we must say, and they must be measured. As an elected member, you have 3 roles. One role is representation, the other is legislation, and the third is oversight. That third role of oversight has been killed because Jubilee has numbers in both houses, and none of the houses can oversight government. So it's a pipe dream. Legislation, we are yet to start there. That leaves representation. Representation is both inside parliament and outside parliament. So when we speak outside parliament, we are actually conducting that role. Now, if you look at that, it is fair and it is not insightful, Trevor, to say that up to the point of independence, Kenyans suffered. A lot of Kenyans were killed by the regime. But one community suffered those deaths more than others, and that is the Kikuyu community. There's nothing insightful about that. It's an historical fact. It is equally an historical fact that since independence, one community has suffered more deaths politically related than all the others, and that is the Luos, both the politicians and the non-politicians, and that is a fact. To say that is not to incite anyone. One would ask then the question why, and we submit, and we've demonstrated, I think, that in recent times, the reason for that has been the differential approach by the police and the state. Before elections, you see police tankers and all sorts of gears being taken to opposition zones, particularly in the Western Kenya. You do not see them being taken anywhere. It is only in those parts like in Kisumu that you find bodies being discovered in body bags in the lake. When you come to hate speech, you will realize a very interesting trend. Kimani Ichung'wah will say anything. My friend Wamatangi is usually more measured, but his county has an unbelievable number of hate mongers. But they will never be arrested. After a lot of hue and cry, then they will try and identify some NASA politician to balance out. Then they are hauled to court together. Some people will say things like what Sonko and others said recently, the very same things that Babu Wino said, but nothing will happen to them.
In fact,
is that not differential treatment? You will see issues in terms of demos. Demonstrations were everywhere, and it's understandable. When the Supreme Court rendered its judgment, there were demos in everywhere, in Muranga, in Kiambu, You did not see any policemen being sent there to quell those demos. It is their right. But you hear any demos in Kisumu, you hear any demos in Mombasa, you hear any demos in... Then it's always a confrontation with the police. In fact, you even hear, and this is unbelievable, a state that is condoning informal and non-state actors to deal with demos. You hear of some interesting illegal group called the Nairobi Business Community, ferried in buses and protected by the police. Why? You would have thought that the police would protect the right to demonstrate and make sure that the Nairobi business community that comes from outside Nairobi is not allowed into the into the city. I mean, all that is differential treatment. Now, the point is, when you have all these instances, and I can name many more, of differential treatment, and if they arrest, then the response is, Kenya is bigger than all of us. Kenya is for all of us. That phrase comes in whenever an inconvenient truth is raised, and one wants to sweep it under the carpet. Okay. For Kenya to work, it must be for all of us. Okay,
Wamatangi, I want to bring you back. Ichung'wah, you have a lot to respond to. Just a bit. Let's have Wamatangi here.
Yes. Let me start a little further from where we were with some of the comments that were made by Miguna, because there are two things that I would like to dispense of, which are factual. And this is on the point he tried to justify on the position taken by Siaya County government about the elections happening in Siaya County. And I just wanted to tell him to take a look at the IEBC register. There is no voter called Siaya County government. And that is why there is no contract between Siaya County government and the IEBC. And so, my point stands that the voters within Siaya County, there could be many, and I can assure you, Trevor, if you look at it, in spite of what they're saying, there are so many voters inside Siaya County who are willing to go to the ballot box and vote on the 26th. There are so many in Kisumu who are still willing to go and vote. Now, so we have to draw the line and say, between the freedom they are talking about and the boundary to criminality, especially when it comes to making sure that, or ensuring that their call is carried out of the elections not happening, how far are they willing to go? And that's why I would say that it is important that that line be drawn. To what extent, at what point, does their call to have no elections carried out border or divide between criminal activity and their freedom? Because as long as, and that's the point I made, I don't want to belabor it again, as long as IEBC can organize elections in every part of this country, open polling stations, provide polling material, any Kenyan who is willing Unlike probably countries like Germany, I think Germany, that's why it is compulsory. Here it isn't. You can go and express your will by voting. Miguna cannot tell anybody in this country that there will be no elections. He can only say that I will not go to vote. And that's why we have a difference. If they say I will not go to vote, I will not participate, that is well and good. We other Kenyans will, and we shall. Some of us, even in their places. And so that distinction must be made. Now, on this other point that he made, on very emphatically saying that we are not second-class citizens, he's very right. They are not second-class citizens. Neither is anyone else. They are first-class citizens, and everybody else is a first-class citizen. So when they are organizing demonstrations, labeling themselves first-class citizens, they must know that they're going to intermingle, they're going to find other first-class citizens who also enjoy and who are entitled to the same rights. And so let them not try to create that differentiation. But let me then deal with something here that you refer to that is in the press, and that is on Chiloba and Chebukati. And there is this talk, and I think my good friend Otiende Amollo is one who's brought it up, on the clearance of Chiloba and Chebukati. You know, Trevor, the country must know that as far as the position in law is concerned, Chiloba and Chebukati are legally in office today and this morning as we speak. They do not need clearance by anyone to continue to execute their duties. They are the bona fide office holders, constitutionally mandated to do what they're doing this morning. And so this debate about whether they are illegitimate does not arise. And I want to say to Otiende Amollo, when you speak about the NASA irreducible minimums, and I think that would be the worst topic for a lawmaker, with due respect, my friend Otiende Amollo, I would allow that debate fronted by anybody in NASA who is not elected in parliament. There is no other better platform for an elected leader, and they know it, to introduce or to bring their irreducible minimums for prosecution. They should have brought it to parliament. You have had the hit and talk against the committee of parliament, which my colleague here, Kimani Ichung'wah, has correctly said is illegal. It is a legal committee. These gentlemen are elected in parliament. What they would have done is to bring those irreducible minimums to parliament and table them and prosecute them in law. And they would be juxtaposed and spoken for and against in this law. They would be saying this is one of our irreducible minimums. Is it lawful? In parliament, and then they would have a way. But you see, when you go to the street to talk about irreducible minimums on the street, you're not helping any cause. And you know, when Chebukati came, I'm a member of that committee. When Chebukati came to appear in that committee, I want to remind Otiende Amollo, one, in spite of, or in tandem with what my colleague has said here, on the legality of the committee, the constitution, the law, and you are a lawyer, you know this very well, is very clear. On one, the quorum for IEBC on major decisions, and two, on decisions pending before IEBC, how many of those people, major decisions, how many of commissioners are allowed as per law right now to make major decisions that are pending or that are in front of the commission. And so when Chebukati appeared before the committee, and he was coming to speak to a major decision that was being taken by the commission, it is important in the spirit of transparency and lawfulness of parliament to ensure that whatever he is saying there is indeed carried along by a majority of his members as a requirement of law that governs the operations of IEBC. So absolutely, and if that amounts to what then they're saying that Jubilee is in bed, I don't know which bed with the IEBC. Okay. I would call it an absolute misconception. If you follow what Jubilee has been saying, We only said one thing, and this is what we are saying this morning. The court mandated IEBC to organize and ensure that an election is carried out in 60 days. We have been unblinking to IEBC.
Okay.
You must conduct elections within those 60 days. But let me touch very quickly on our last point, a very important
briefly,
one. Yes, because this one has been brought by Otiende, and I think we must speak about this very, very clearly. On this title, he has labeled that topic he brought about of differentiation. And you know, I want to say this for Kenyans to remember this morning. It is a long way in history. I watched and refreshed my memory on the event, or on one event that took place a long time ago in Kisumu, when the founder of this nation, Mzee Jomo Kenyatta, went to Kisumu in the presence of Odinga to open Russia Hospital. And you remember that is an incident that is well documented and has been replayed a lot. But one amazing thing that still clearly stands out were the words that were used by Mzee Jomo Kenyatta when he was there. In his speech, he was unrelenting and very clear. He said the one thing that we have to fight in this country, and I'm saying to you as I stand here in Kisumu, is fight tribalism. Because if we do not fight tribalism, we will not move forward. And in fact, when addressing Jaramogi, the Mzee, he said, some of those people here who are shouting, who are doing what, but this country can only move as one. I want to say to my colleagues, you know, when you get down, climb down the ladder, so down, and the reason why we would be counting benefits, Trevor, is this, that as time has moved, as politics has evolved, that is why you find somebody like Dr. Otiende Amollo gets elected, for him to bring in change, okay, and to bring in modernity into politics. Now, if we climb down the ladder way below what it was in 1965, then what are we saying? It is very wrong for them to start mentioning and calling out the names of communities here, that the Luos are being targeted. That is a way of trying to invoke emotions, okay, wrong emotions. Well noted. Let me bring and it is irresponsible for a leader, because they know where that would lead this country. The memories would be very short for getting 2007, 2008. You made your point, Senator. You made your point. Yes, Kimani, you have a lot to respond to.
You know, Trevor, I just want to pick up from where Senator Wamatangi has left. Yes. Sorry for my voice, because we are still busy campaigning for us, because we are ready for the election. And you asked me a question earlier on the consequences of Raila pullout. Let me say, IEBC has two options. One, to adopt the Supreme Court advisory opinion of 2013, or two, to invoke the provisions of regulation number 21 and 53. And like my case in Kikuyu constituency, where I was declared elected and opposed, declare Uhuru Kenyatta as elected and opposed if Raila Odinga, within his democratic right, decides to pull out of the election. Okay. And therefore, what is being said of the call by leaders in Siaya County for people not to participate in the election, let me also say it is within the democratic right of those political leaders, but they cannot in any way direct their people on what to do. I am certain that there are people, and I'm just getting texts here from people texting me from Siaya, saying that they are in Siaya and they are willing to participate in an election. Therefore, they are within their democratic rights to ask people not to vote. But so long as they do not in any way curtail the rights of those who may want to participate in that election. Therefore, I would even encourage them. You can encourage Kisumu, you can encourage Migori, Homa Bay, Mombasa, not to vote, so long as you do not curtail the rights of others who want to participate in that election. Okay. And let me also disabuse the notion that if, with the provisions of Article 138(2), that if Kikuyu constituency decides not, a few people in Kikuyu constituency, or a majority of the people in Kikuyu constituency decide not to participate in the election, that invalidates the election. It doesn't. Because, as has been said, this country, unlike countries like Australia, voting is not compulsory, and your participation in elections and electoral matters is voluntary. Therefore, those who will voluntarily not want to participate in the election, it is within their democratic right. Even those who are candidates, like Raila Odinga, if they do not want to participate, it is within their democratic right, so long as you do not use violence, as we have seen, because they have shown by all means and intent that they want to use violence and intimidation to curtail other Kenyans from participating in the election. And let me say, even what Miguna and Otiende Amollo seem very desperate to insinuate that there are certain communities, and even going out to mention those communities that the Luos are being targeted, Luos have been targeted over the years. And Otiende Amollo is asking us what is the differential between demonstrators, say, for instance, in Kikuyu and those who are demonstrating in Kisumu. Otiende Amollo, the simple differential is one. When demonstrators were demonstrating in Kisumu and looting, destroying water lines, the water lines that are going to their own homes, we did not see the leadership in Kisumu going to speak to the people. I will tell you the difference. When the people of Kikuyu turned out to demonstrate, and they in fact went out to curtail the rights of others to use Wayakiwe and block the highway, I left Parliament myself, and I went and I spoke to the people, and I told them, this is the main artery of our economy in Nairobi, and you are curtailing the rights of other Kenyans to peaceably and freely move from wherever they want to move into the capital city. And the people listen to me, because that is what leadership calls of me. I would encourage you, Otiende Amollo, when you see people looting in Kisumu, don't just issue statements from your political party secretariat. Go to Kisumu, talk to the people, tell them that demonstrations and picketing is within their rights as Kenyans, as enshrined in the Constitution, but they must do so peaceably without destroying either other people's property or even public property, including roads and the water that you drink in Kisumu. The other question that Miguna spoke to is what he called that we are looking at this election as a coronation ritual. Miguna, I want to tell you, rituals are not for us in Jubilee, and you know those who participate in rituals, including asking people to strip and see chuppies, as they call on women in Nairobi. We do not participate in those rituals. You know better those people who participate in ritualistic things. Let me say also, from what Miguna spoke to, that those who were opposed to the Constitution, after the enactment of this Constitution in 2010, it is those who were opposed to this Constitution that got into power. That also, to me, reads a sense of entitlement, not by Miguna, but also by those that Miguna speaks for in the NASA and ODM coalition, the party that he served before he ran for governor as an independent candidate. That, and to a large extent, even the ODM leader, Raila Odinga, he has this sense of entitlement, the same sense of entitlement that you hear Miguna speak to, that if I fought, I am entitled. And you forget that you fought for a democratic process that allows every other Kenyan, irrespective of whether you supported that constitution or not, to have an opportunity to take a stab at the leadership of this country. And that democratic process behoves of us to have the majority have their way and the minority have their say. And therefore, the majority of Kenyans chose to elect the leaders that they chose. I know he could be speaking to William Ruto, who was opposed to the Constitution in 2010. But it is the people of Kenya who chose to elect William Ruto and Uhuru Kenyatta as their president and a deputy president. You must respect that. That was a choice of the majority of Kenyans. Two is what Otiende Amollo has spoken to, that nobody is focusing on credible elections. And he actually said that I verbalized the sense that we have allowed IEBC as a political formation, we have allowed IEBC. And indeed, I want to repeat that, Amollo. We have allowed IEBC because the Constitution expects us, or rather obligates us, to allow IEBC. And I want to read for you Article 249 of the Constitution, sub-Article 2, that the commissions and holders of independent offices are subject only to this Constitution and the law, and are independent and not subject to direction or control by any person or authority. Okay. What my friend Otiende Amollo, as an officer of the court and as what they call the learned friends, I would expect you would be more knowledgeable in the provision of this constitution than even myself, who is an accountant, that this constitution demands that either ODM or yourselves as leaders within the NASA formation, that you do not in any way seek to influence or direct the workings of an independent commission. Otiende Amollo just told us here that the irreducible minimums are just an abstract of what the Supreme Court said. And I was asking myself, because Otiende Amollo, as much as I came late, I was listening to you. Fortunately, with technology today, I can stream in even as I drive here. And I heard you say that those irreducible minimums are just an extract of what the Supreme Court said. And I was asking myself, where did the Supreme Court say that Chiloba Kasait, and a few other officers, including commissioners, must leave office because those are the demands, some of the absurd demands. And you know very well, Otiende Amollo, again as a well-respected lawyer, that this constitution, there are provisions within this constitution, I think Article 251, that tells you how you remove from office holders of independent commissioners, like IEBC commissioners. In fact, the same laws you speak to, Otiende Amollo, speaks the elections, the IEBC Act also speaks to how you remove from office holders of office in the secretariat in such a commission. Okay, therefore, you cannot. The only thing I will give Otiende Amollo, Miguna Miguna, and their friends in NASA credit for. Yeah. They have a tyranny of lies. They have a tyranny of propaganda, and it is the same propaganda you see them propagating and wanting Kenyans to believe that indeed the irreducible minimums is an abstract of the Supreme Court ruling. If it is, then the court is still alive and active. Okay, we will allow due process, Trevor. Allow due process. Allow IEBC, in line with the provisions of this constitution, to carry out their work independently and without direction from any quarter. Kimani, then once that is done, allow the judiciary then to check in and check if IEBC was able to conduct a credible election.
Let's throw this to Usha Oze with your feedback. Some of them might be questions for the panelists. Usha, what do you have?
Right, so there's a lot happening on social media. Of course, because of time, I'll only read a few. We have at MD Omondi, who says, the day we stop fighting tribalism in Kenya is the day we'll understand what ails our country. Our tribes are our kingdoms. We also have Joe, who says, NASA leader will never accept defeat in the event he loses, and that's why he's politicking and dilly-dallying on every issue. We have Waleni, who says, the demonstrations are just a sign of frustrations from all Kenyan citizens, most especially the second-class citizens. We have Karinga, who says, it's hypocritical for Amollo to articulate the election is predetermined, yet he was elected via the same elections under IEBC. I don't know, Otiende, would you like the right of reply on that one? Very briefly. Very briefly.
The direct question, you just read it again.
Yeah. Yes, I'm quite happy to do that. Yeah. And it's something that is often spoken to. Yeah. The problem with the presidential election was not the personnel who conducted it as such, or the law. It was the way it was done. And therefore, the presidential results were nullified because of failure to comply with the law relating to presidential elections. I was not elected under the law on presidential elections. And therefore, as an elected member of parliament, as an elected governor, there is no contradiction in sitting as an elected MP and in condemning that presidential election. Okay. Am I happy? Should I continue now with the responding to Kimani, Ichung'wah, and Wamatangi?
Let her finish. Let Usha finish, then you'll respond. Then Dr. Miguna will go first. Yeah, go ahead, Usha.
Right. We also have Dan, who says, what majority of Kenya need is peace. Leaders should not divide us with their self-interests in the name of saving Wanjiku. So a couple of comments there, not really taking sides, but just really asking for peace. We also have Rago, who says, NASA's hidden agenda became clear when they chose press conferences and the streets over campaigns after their Supreme Court win. We also have Geoffrey, who says, if the driver of the yesterday hit and run was from any of the NASA strongholds, he would have been jailed by yesterday. We also have Vivon, who says Jubilee quest for peace is mere mediocrity. Without free, fair and credible elections, there can never be peace. We have Frank, who says Wamatangi, peaceful demonstration is enshrined in the Constitution. Don't demonize it. It is our right. And finally, we have Kipchumba, who says intolerance, selective application of laws and community victimization bode ill for Kenya's future. Uhuru should provide leadership. Of course, this is just a sample of the tweets. There is a lot more. Do keep the conversation going. Hashtag AM Live NTV, hashtag Decision 2017. That is how you can reach us. And I would be happy to sample your feedback as well as get the panel to answer your questions. Back to you, Trevor.
Thanks, Usha. I know you have a lot of them coming through, but let's bring in Dr. Miguna. And you have a lot to respond to. And as you do that, because you're running out of time, one thing that Wamatangi brought up is that why doesn't NASA bring the reducible minimums in Parliament? In your experience in governance, would that be a solution? But very briefly, as you also wrap up.
Trevor, let me say first of all that in China, and I don't subscribe to capital punishment, Chiloba, Chebukati, and all the people that bungled the election would have been shot dead already. And in the UK, in Canada, in the US, and many Western countries, they would already have been convicted and serving life sentences in jail. Nobody and no media would be reporting on them positively the way that the Kenyan media is doing. Page 2 of The Nation is horrifying. Court clears Chebukati Cheloba. The court rejected that application on the basis that it was filed before the Supreme Court decision was rendered. That was really the reason. It was not clearing anybody, and the court never cleared them. But let me educate both Honorable Wamatangi and Ichung'wah pro bono. Number one, Article 1 of the Constitution says, all sovereign power belongs to the people of Kenya and shall be exercised only in accordance with this Constitution. And subsection 3, sovereign power under this Constitution is delegated to the following state organs, which shall perform their functions in accordance with the Constitution. B, the national executive and the executive structures in county governments. Therefore, the county government of Siaya is exercising power donated to it by the Constitution on behalf of the people, and has the duty to make whatever resolutions they did, and they have done so. Number 2, demonstrations are constitutionally protected speech. The people have a right to demonstrate and to speak unhampered, and they are doing so peacefully. Article 25 of the Constitution under the Bill of Rights specify what rights cannot be derogated, what rights cannot be waived, infringed upon, or in any way compromised. The first one, A, freedom from torture, cruel, inhuman, and degrading treatment. What you saw yesterday by a person dressed in civilian clothing shooting a demonstrator in the leg and running over 4 others violates that constitutional provision, and they have not been arrested. B, freedom from slavery or servitude. I am going to say again and again, Luos are Kenyans like any other community and will not be subjected to servitude or slavery by anyone, however powerful they may be. I am saying it in front of you, my friend, and that is very responsible. And I'm going to stand here in defense of everyone, including Luos, all right? And nobody is going to tell us that just because they wield power, therefore they have right to treat others like slaves. To Honorable Ichung'wah, I will say 2 things.
As you finish up, we're running out of time here.
When Babu Owino MP for Embakasi East was, just before he was arrested, there were demonstrations on Thika Road, violent demonstrations, bonfires, vehicles were stopped, passengers were harassed. There was a lot of commotion. Nobody was shot. Immediately after the Supreme Court rendered its judgment, there were violent demonstrations in Kiambu. There were violent demonstrations in front of the Supreme Court. Chief Justice Maraga was threatened and other judges. The Supreme Court gate was threatened of almost being broken. The Chief Honorable Maraga addressed a press conference on behalf of the JAC and said that he had called for police protection of all the judicial infrastructure, including judges, and that the police had not even accorded him the courtesy of responding to his calls. These are facts. So these demonstrators were not tear-gassed, they were not attacked, they were not brutalized, they were not shot.
Okay, solution.
In the end, solution. No, solution.
We're running out of time. I have to give
the solution is this.
Yes.
We are going to defend the Constitution. We are going to defend the constitutional rights of all Kenyans. We are going to stop this rogue government from running roughshod over the Constitution and over our rights. Okay. We are going to do it as citizens of Kenya. And we are not going to do it with any apology.
Okay, Dr. Otiende Amollo, very briefly as you respond and also give your solutions. We're running out of time here.
Why do I say the joint committee of parliament is illegal? 3 reasons. First of all, this is a committee formed entirely of one side of parliament. By definition, it is illegitimate. Secondly, there was no resolution in both houses to have that joint committee, which would have been necessary. Thirdly, it's a joint committee that is wrongly premised. The bill in the National Assembly says it does not concern county government, which means it cannot involve the Senate. The bill in the Senate says it concerns county government. That contradiction itself would ensure that there cannot be a joint sitting unless the bills were revised.
Okay.
Are these things that could be brought to Parliament? Of course not. When Honorable Wamatangi says that these are things, the irreducible minimum are things we should take to Parliament, he misses the point completely. Our point has been, the Supreme Court did not say there was any, there was any problem with the law as would require legislative change. There is nothing that requires to be taken to Parliament. All the issues raised in our irreducible minimum in the Supreme Court decision are administrative. Okay. It is Parliament that is interfering by purporting to introduce the law. And on the question of Chebukati, I think that my friend Wamatangi is quite dishonest on that. He knows that the returning officer for the presidential election is the chair of the IEBC, not the commissioners, and therefore must be the one primarily and alone who must deal with those issues. He knows that there is nowhere where it says that the chair cannot speak unless all the other commissioners are present. In fact, the law is always clear on commissions. Two things. One, the chairperson is the spokesperson of the commission. Two, the chairperson directs and supervises the work of the commission. Okay. When the chair therefore appears before you, it's not in your place to say, go and bring the other commissioners. Okay. They must say that because they know the commissioners that are affiliated and are bidding the will of Jubilee. My friend Kimani Ichung'wah, who I must remind my name is Otiende Amollo, not Atiende Amollo, as he keeps saying it. Purports to educate me on the Constitution, and forget, first, I'm a lawyer, and secondly, I wrote that Constitution. And so I must tell you, Mr. Ichung'wah, that if it comes to that, I would educate you a lot on many things. No, and let me educate you on only one. Right now. He then says that the IEBC has the option of declaring President Kenyatta as the president without election. But he says that in ignorance of Article 138, which I must remind him to now go and read. Then he would know that that is not an option that is available. Let me close in saying only one thing about the demos. I was myself present in the demos in Kisumu on Friday. And I myself, and the media will tell you this or show you, led the demonstrators in carrying the white handkerchiefs, in ensuring that no one threw any stones and no one did anything. Okay. We even walked to the IEBC office and we stopped at a safe distance. I engaged the commander and I told him, I alone will come to this point. Okay. Then I will address the gathering. Then we will walk away, and that's what we did. Okay. After the demonstrations were over, the question of attacking Tumaini supermarket came after the demonstrators had dispersed. Okay. Now, this is some of where the money comes in, where therefore you hire certain people to come and destroy property in the hope that you can therefore delegitimize very legitimate demonstrations. Okay. Now, this is my closing. What should happen? What should happen in demos is that the police must recognize that demonstrations are lawful and constitutional. You do not deal with them the way they're dealing. Just this morning you showed. Yeah. They arrested people in Machakos for demonstrating. You don't do that. You ask the leadership and tell them, you will be holding the demos. What will be your route? Let us agree on the route. Okay. Then you say, let us also agree that you will encourage the demonstrators to be peaceful. But more fundamentally, the police must protect private property. They must be stationed strategically to protect private property, not to shoot, maim, or kill the demonstrators as they've been doing. All right, you made your point, and we have to leave it there. But Wamatangi and Ichung'wah, I'll give you 30 seconds for solutions only, not the political sparring that has been happening. That's okay, Trevor, but let's deal with two quick issues, and I'll take my 30 seconds. That's all right. First, with what Miguna said, you know, and especially emphasizing that name Luos, and then he offered to educate us for free. You know, Trevor, I would tell you and tell Kenyans, if you're invited anywhere for any education, even in an institution,
The question to ask yourself is not what education you're getting. The question to ask yourself is, what are you becoming out of that education? And what Miguna says is dangerous, very dangerous. If that's what he's become out of that education, then that's not education one needs. And you know, in the same stroke, and I respect Otiende Amollo quite a lot with his law. He's quite schooled. You know what Mark Twain said? He said, I don't let my schooling stand in the way of my education. That could be, unfortunately, what is happening, because he knows very well, other than his schooling, but in the education of the Constitution and the law governing IEBC, that for any major decisions pending before IEBC, those decisions must be taken by a majority of those commissioners, including the chairman, who is a commissioner.
Solution.
And so, you know, in as far as the IEBC and the legitimacy of the two and the work the committee is doing, those facts stand as a solution and as a way forward. Kenyans know that there is nowhere where you have had, since we started these campaigns, the leader of NASA anywhere saying, Munipigie kura, give me your votes. He has not said that. Neither one of them. And the solution is this. I want to give the solution as a solution to IEBC, because these gentlemen, if you had them say, they're determined that there will be no elections. They want to interfere and deny Kenyans their right. The solution, I want to say to IEBC, it is a high time now they start planning. You see, there is no limitation in the way that technology to ensure Kenyans voters vote should be applied. It is time to even start thinking now in Siaya, in Kisumu. They should have mobile polling stations, whereby Miguna says, I'm in my house, I will not come to vote. Take those kids to those who are willing to vote. Let them vote. And once they vote, bring the results. Take them to the other places, because this gentleman, and you know, gentleman is a word with a lot of latitude, especially applied to Miguna. You know, but I say, IEBC now must think out of the box. Yeah, I mean, take the vote to the people where they are in those places. Let them vote, and then we count our votes and move on. The country needs to move on.
Just solutions.
For those who seek to educate others like Miguna and Otiende Amollo, or don't also educate Kenyans on the new meaning of violence, because there seems to be a new meaning of violence. Because when you say people demonstrating in Kiambu without injuring anybody, without destroying anybody's property, they blocked roads. They were encouraged to remove whatever they have blocked roads with, and they did so peaceably. And even in Githurai, where people were a bit resistant, the police did intervene and cleared the roads, thicker road on that particular day. On the solution, let me say the solution is one. One, let us by all means avoid violence. Let us avoid inciting people on the basis of ethnicity. Those in the NASA formation are very good at inciting people on the basis of their ethnicity. That is why you see the very desperate attempts to try and raise the emotions of the Luo community in this country. And also trying to speak to the international community that this is probably something close to ethnic genocide. And we must be responsible leaders. Otiende Amollo, I got it right this time.
Yes.
He is now a member of parliament. Otiende Amollo, do be in parliament this afternoon. Articulate the issues and the opposition you have to the substance of the amendment laws that have been brought to the House. If you seek to educate people on the reading of the Constitution, as you read Article 138 on the procedures at a presidential election, also read it together with Article 136 that talks about a national election. Two,
we have to leave it there.
Let me just finish, because you did mention the work of the chair of the IEBC commission. I will also encourage him to go and read Article 259, sub-Article 3A, all the way to C. And you will do a bit of learning as much as you claim to have written this constitution. You never wrote this constitution. This constitution was written by the people of Kenya, and you must respect it.
All right, thank you so much, Dr. Miguna Miguna, lawyer, Honorable Otiende Amollo, Rarieda MP and Ombudsman Emeritus, Honorable Kimani Wamatangi, Kiambu Senator, Honorable Kimani Ichung'wah, Kikuyu Member of Parliament. This has been People in Politics, and thank you for all the contribution. The conversation still goes on online. We'll sample some of them in the next hour, and coming up now is Better Living, and I'm Trevor Ombija. It is a pleasure having you with us. Bye for now.